Welcome back to the latest installment of Tales from My Spinner Rack. I am Gary Sassaman, the former Director of Programming and Publications for Comic-Con International San Diego, with another look back at some of the comics I read and loved as a kid. For Episode 2, I'm recreating my WonderCon 2023 panel presentation featuring one of Batman's darkest nights. May I present, for your consideration, the May 1962 issue of Batman, number 147, featuring the self-proclaimed story of the year, When Batman Becomes Bat-Baby. The Batman comics of this era are truly something that'll make your head spin. The character was in a scary place in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Both his books, Batman and Detective Comics, had reduced the Caped Crusader from a fearsome creature of the night with one of comics' best rogue galleries to an ongoing series of embarrassingly out-of-character science fiction tales. And if it didn't involve encountering an alien, or actually becoming one, it instead gave Batman some kind of bizarre transformation. He was negative. He was zebra-striped. He was even colossal. He was also, of course, Bat-Baby, but hang on, we'll get to that in a minute. Or there was yet another tale featuring yet another new member of the burgeoning Bat family, Batwoman, or Batgirl, or Ace the Bat-Hound, or the dimension-hopping Batmite, the Batman books version of Superman's impish Mr. Mxyzptlk. At least Batmite was easier to pronounce. Jack Schiff edited the Bat books at this time, including World's Finest Comics, where both Superman and Batman, with Robin, of course, tagging along, teamed up each issue, some drawn by Dick Sprang or Curt Swan, two of DC's finest artists. Schiff also edited DC's mystery books, House of Mystery and House of Secrets, and whether it was due to the success of science fiction movies at the box office in this era, or Schiff's own personal preferences, Batman frequently found himself encountering alien menaces both here on Earth and also on other planets. All those new Bat family additions were probably spawned by the success of Mort Weisinger's Superman books. The Man of Steel had separate adventures as his younger self, Superboy, plus supporting characters like Supergirl, Crypto the Superdog, and Streaky the Supercat. And he also had alien adversaries like Brainiac, and incredible transformations due to the effects of red kryptonite. Batman was just trying to keep up with the Superman family next door, but he was failing miserably at it. At one point, Batman sales had sunk so low that Detective Comics, which DC got its company name from, was on the verge of cancellation. Time to go, Streaky. Go before they slap a bat mask on you and call you Bat Kitty. Whatever the reasons for this awful state of affairs in the Bat books, another fact certainly didn't help. A lot of the stories were still being produced by Batman creator, and that word is in air quotes, by the way, Bob Kane. Bob was smart enough to bring a lawyer with him when he signed over Batman to DC, way back in 1939, and 20 years later, every Bat story in every Bat book still had Bob Kane's cute little signature box on it, even if unacknowledged co-creator Bill Finger was still writing a lot of the tales, and more often than not he was. Finger was responsible for a lot of what made Batman great, including the bat-like look of his costume, the Batcave, the Batmobile, the Bat Signal, and much, much more. Kane was guaranteed a certain amount of pages each month, but he probably hadn't written or drawn a line in those stories in years, farming them out to an assortment of ghost artists like Lou Sayre Schwartz and Sheldon Moldoff. I believe the great Dick Sprang worked directly for DC Comics, but his stories were still signed Bob Kane. By this time, most of the Batman stories were by Moldoff, and you could easily recognize his old-fashioned art style. Or should I say Bob Kane's old-fashioned art style. So in May 1962, just a few months before DC's crosstown rival Marvel Comics introduced Spider-Man and Amazing Fantasy 15, followed by the Mighty Thor and Journey into Mystery 83, and Ant-Man and Tales to Astonish 35, Batman editor Jack Schiff gave us Batman 147, cover dated May 1962, but released in March of that year. All three stories in this issue were written by Bill Finger and drawn by Bob Kane. In reality, penciler Sheldon Moldoff and inker Charles Paris. The first story, The Plants of Plunder, is yet another science fiction-oriented tale featuring a scientific farmer who, of course, just happens to be an alien. The second story, The Secret of Mystery Island, features Finger's signature giant props, this time a huge statue of Buddha on which Batman pursues a villain. And finally we have, pardon my lousy French, the piece de resistance, the story of the year, at least according to the cover. And remember, it was only March when this book came out. Batman becomes Batbaby. Evidently, these baby stories were something special at DC. 3 years later, the June 1965 issue of Action Comics, number 325, featured Superbaby on the cover and proclaimed the Skyscraper Superman as the best Superman story of the year. Me want to play with toy plane. When I started writing tales for my spinner rack and posting it on my blog, I mentioned I didn't want to poke fun at any of these books. Other people do that much better than I could hope to do, focusing on the inanity and absolute wonkiness of some of these books from across the history of comics. But this is quite possibly the lowest point ever for the Caped Crusader, and you, dear viewer, can judge for yourself with this visual synopsis that I present for your edification and viewing pleasure. Our story begins with a preview look at Batbaby in action, as the caption reads, "Imagine Batman as a 4-year-old," as he uses a helium-filled advertising balloon to catch up to Robin fighting criminals on a Gotham City rooftop. The hoodlums can only gasp in amazement. It's Robin and Batbaby! Batman and Robin are hot on the heels of Nails Finney and his gang. An anonymous tip brings them to a building one night, but it's a trap, set by Finney and that renegade scientist Garth. Batman walks into a mysterious ray from an equally mysterious machine, and he starts to shrink. Not an uncommon occurrence in comics in the 1960s. Just ask the Atom or Ant-Man. But no, he's not shrinking. His growth is being reversed. As the ever-quick Robin observes, but Batman, you look, gulp, like a little child. And as we find out, sometime later, savvy scientist Garth's evil ray also contained a camera, and the media receives a mysterious package containing photos of the new Batbaby. And so it is that the world learns of Batman's strange fate. But fortunately, as teensy-weensy Bruce Wayne figures out, only his growth has been affected. Batman still has his full adult strength and intelligence, which unfortunately doesn't stop him from putting on a pair of little black shorts with suspenders and little gray socks with little black booties as he proclaims, "So Gangland is now calling me a baby. Well, I'll dress like a baby and prove to them I'm a still crime fighter, as Batbaby." There's no evidence that he kept his adult voice. That would be weird. It doesn't quite have the ring of, "Criminals are a superstitious, cowardly lot, so my disguise must be able to strike terror into their hearts. I must be a creature of the night," yada yada yada. But okay, fine. You be you, Batbaby. Batbaby and Robin go out on patrol and nab a gang of criminals, and within the hour, newspapers proclaim Batbaby does okay for a kid, a sterling endorsement from the media. Meanwhile, back at Wayne Manor, Kathy Kane, who is secretly Batwoman, comes to visit her main squeeze Bruce Wayne, but baby Bruce can't be seen or Kathy will figure out his secret identity. So the brilliant Batmind comes up with a cutout of a man and a woman making out, which Kathy sees, causing her to leave in a huff and vow never to return. Bruce tells Robin he'll explain it was just a cousin of his. Let's hope it's a third or fourth cousin. This is an all-ages comic book. But the important lesson to remember here, kids, is to always have that cardboard cutout of a man and a woman making out ready to go. Meanwhile, as they say in the comic books, baby Bruce hangs out at the playground across from a criminal pawn shop, obviously the perfect place for a kid's playground, and spies gang member Swap Smith leaving. Having the foresight to hide skates in the park so he could keep up with adult criminals, Bruce follows Smith and reports back to Robin. Batbaby and Robin return that night and round up the bad guys in an action-packed sequence, wherein the dark baby instantly leaps upon an appropriate steed, a rocking horse that just happens to be in the villain's lair. Maybe he runs a daycare center in his off hours, I don't know, and bashes the gangsters. Off panel, he turns on Garth's ray and is instantly transformed back into the adult Batman. Yes, I discarded my Bat Baby garb and slipped on this plastic costume I had folded up in my pants pocket. I guess those little black shorts had very deep back pockets. And that night, the Batcave's famed trophy room has a new trophy, Bat Baby's cute little costume encased in a glass box, soon to be joined by the costume of Jason Todd, the second Robin, who was beaten to death with a crowbar by the Joker. The end. There's a full-page ad in this issue of Batman for the latest issues of The Flash and Green Lantern. Both of these books were edited by Julius Schwartz. Flash was drawn by Carmine Infantino, and Green Lantern by Gil Kane, both in a sophisticated style that was clean, sleek, and of its era, the new frontier of the 1960s. While Sheldon Moldoff's Batman art has a certain charm to it, compared to artists like the other Kane, Infantino, and Murphy Anderson, it looks clunky and old-fashioned. Before long, DC's editorial director, Erwin Donenfeld, son of DC co-founder Harry Donenfeld, remember, nepotism is nice, would take editor Jack Schiff off the Batman books due to dwindling sales. Schiff retired in 1967 after 25 years with DC. After successfully bringing back Golden Age heroes Flash, Green Lantern, the Atom, and Hawkman, not to mention the best-selling Justice League of America, an updating of the Golden Age's Justice Society, Julius Schwartz has proven himself to be the go-to superhero revival guy. He was charged with using CPR, comic reboot powers, to bring Batman back to life. Schwartz proceeded to do so with the new look Batman that started in Detective Comics number 327, May 1964, and Batman number 164, June 1964, bringing on Carmine Infantino to draw the covers and some stories, at least those not guaranteed to Bob Kane by his contract. Infantino's covers alone changed the entire feel of the character, and soon Bob Kane didn't have to pretend to be the sole writer, penciler, inker, letterer, colorist, and janitor of Batman comics at DC, although that didn't stop him from trying to hog the Bat Signal spotlight until the day he died. And while the pre-New Look Batman comics hold a certain level of nostalgia, even as a kid, I kind of found them unreadable. Years later, when Sheldon Moldoff was retired and making the rounds of conventions, I bought a couple of his marker drawings, like this one of Batmite, and found they made me curious about that era. But I still find the books to be unreadable. Once the Batman TV series debuted on ABC in January 1966, the comic books became bestsellers again, and it hardly mattered who was writing and drawing them. Anything with Batman on it sold like crazy. When Batmania quickly fizzled, the character was once again reborn under Schwartz, with a back-to-basics approach by creators such as Denny O'Neil, Frank Robbins, Neil Adams, and Dick Giordano. Batman was once again a creature of the night, preying on superstitious, cowardly criminals. The great Bat villains, Joker, Penguin, Catwoman, and Two-Face, came roaring back, more menacing than ever, and in the case of the Joker and Two-Face, more psychotic than ever. Still, Bat-Baby haunted me. I remember waking up in the middle of the night years ago and going online to eBay to see if I could find a copy of Batman number 147. I did, but it was way out of my price range. At Comic-Con in 2022, it was the first book I bought during a weekend-long orgy of sifting through white boxes. The copy I found was a bit beat up. I prefer to think of it as well-loved, but it made the visions of Bat-Baby dancing in my head finally quiet down. Eventually, the reality of this being Batman's nadir sunk in. The comics could only get better from here, and after the disaster of both the Jack Schiff era and the campy Batman TV show, thankfully, they did. Please like, comment, and subscribe here on YouTube, and turn on notifications to find out when I post new videos. If you're watching this, you're already here, so come on, show a little love. Check out the very first episode of Tales from My Spinner Rack featuring And Lo, There Shall Be a Spinner Rack, including my secret origin, on how both my spinner rack posts and my love of comic books came to be. Follow me on Instagram at Tales from My Spinner Rack. It's one ridiculously long word. Or if you want to stalk me personally, follow me at GG92118. Please leave likes and comments, but just be nice, okay? My ego is very fragile. Most importantly, visit my blog at www.innocent-bystander.com to read all my Tales from My Spinner Rack posts. There's over 30 of them now, including posts with all the books you see here and more, with fascinating info about 1960s comic books and tons of scanned images featuring covers, interior pages, and even original art. I promise you'll find these to be informative, fun, and warmly nostalgic. That's www.innocent-bystander.com, where I also post book reviews, travel photos, and lots of other glimpses into my personal life. Now, doesn't that sound exciting? Join us in a few short weeks for the recreation of my Comic-Con 2023 panel presentation when we look at some of the wonkiest and wildest comics from the 1960s, with Jimmy and Lois still crazy after all these years. Jeepers, Mr. Kent, it's a doozy. Thanks for watching. Good night.